We are joined now by one of the eminent goaltending experts the world over. Kevin Woodley of In Goal Media joins us after what was an extraordinary week for the Vancouver Canucks in the crease. How you doing, my dude?
Well, I guess my summer's over, right?
Yeah.
If this had been about a center or a defenseman, I might have been able to cruise, at least into September before I started getting regular guest spots. But
Yeah.
thanks to our friend Rick Dollywell, there is no rest for us
No.
goalie people right now.
So best you can tell, Kev, what happened here with Thatcher Demko?
Oh, that one, there's still a lot of mystery around that one. How do we go from ready to play? And I remember watching him in morning skate, game 7 against the Oilers, and just being blown away. Like, they had taken the restrictor plates off. He was full go, full clearance to practice at 100%, and he was flying out there. To him telling us afterwards that that's where he was, and he probably would have played in the next round, especially with his numbers against Dallas, almost certainly would have. To now, where I don't expect him at training camp. I don't really expect him, although there seems to be a fair degree of uncertainty internally and amongst those close to him about when it will be. But I think the start of the season is probably a stretch too. Something has to happen between those two things. Whether it's something that made it worse, like you can tweak an injury, right? Like, and make it worse and require a procedure. But they haven't told us, right? We don't know whether there's been a procedure done. That's certainly the buzz in the goaltending community, and frankly, one that I'd been hearing for a while, but not with 100% degree of certainty. So, yeah, I'd be honest with you too. Like, I think a lot of people, if they hear that, like, procedure, surgery, would be more like, they tend to react to that negatively. And I look at that almost as a positive in some ways. Like, if this was the injury from the playoffs that he was recovered from is still bugging him, that would indicate a degree of uncertainty around the injury. And we don't know when this is going to be better. So if indeed there was the procedure, then you have a timeline. Even if it's not going as quickly as you'd like, you have a timeline versus just that uncertainty of not knowing, like, is this fully healed? Is this going to be a forever thing? And my understanding is this is not a Carey Price situation where he goes in for a scope. They find out the meniscus tear is actually bucket handle. The recovery takes forever and he's never the same. Like, my understanding is this is not that. We're not looking at this is something, the mystery is the start of the end at all. And as we saw in the playoffs, if anybody's going to beat a timeline and do the work to get back, it'll be Thatcher Demko, because not many guys work as hard as him. Like, he is very determined. We've heard some implications that maybe they need to dial that back a little bit. But yeah, so I don't have all the answers. I just do think that some of the timelines that Rick has put out there, which forced me to start fishing a little more aggressively, are accurate. I don't expect him at training camp. I don't know why the delay in and out. I mean, I guess it would undermine your position if you're talking to other people, if that is out there with certainty, but I'm certainly not expecting him at training camp.
Let's refresh where we were before, even where you started there on game 7. The injury that keeps him out till the final week of the season, different than this injury, correct? Are we still going with that there, that they are unrelated, or at least different parts of the leg?
You can have a different injury to the same joint.
Yes.
Which I believe is what the word that's out there. But to suggest that a different injury to the same joint is completely unrelated to coming back from it seems, that, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I've talked to people that would suggest that's a bit of a stretch.
Right. Compensatory injury, something related. Yes.
Right. Exactly. You injure one side of the knee, you build it all back up, and then, inevitably there are other parts of the joint that aren't able to handle. I mean, the injury where he sustained it, like, that's a routine thing he does 100 times a day in practice, right? Like going into reverse and pushing off of it. And yet, at the end of the day, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but this is a big part of goaltending right now. We have guys getting hurt on somewhat innocuous movements. Joseph Woll was a similar push off the post with Toronto. The human body was definitely not designed to get into these positions, certainly not with the power and pace that Thatcher plays. And it's a lot of stress on the body. And so as we continue to see talk about workloads being pushed down into the 50 range. And it's a fascinating time, not a great time to be a goalie because of all the stress on the body. But this is not just here. We're obviously hypersensitive to it here, but we've seen this around the league, guys struggling to get through seasons.
Well, Kev, if that's the case, is there a debate in the goaltender community that maybe we shouldn't be asking them to get in these positions?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, there are some people that would argue that you can get into them less often than the system would suggest here, than the system puts them into it here, and that would reduce some of the wear and tear. But again, I guess my one counterpoint to that would be literally tens of thousands of times that I've watched him pop in and out of that position without injury. And then to have it in a movement that, like I said, innocuous probably isn't a fair word, but it's just an everyday thing he does all the time, suggests to me that the joint probably wasn't at 100% for it to be caused by that. But certainly, Matt, that's a discussion around the league, limiting the amount of times you spend in the reverse, limiting how often you go into it, holding edges on those things. I was at a USA Hockey Symposium in Minnesota, their first ever National Goaltending Symposium in June. And they were talking about, for kids especially, like, we have pitch counts for minor league baseball and youth in baseball. Do we need to put a pitch count on a reverse count on goalies and how much they play and things like that? So this is a discussion for sure. At the end of the day, this system has also created a lot of Vezina Trophy winners.
Have you heard anything? Is there anything about this that has your mind go to the ACL and a knee injury, Kevin?
I know it's been, I think it's like the knee for sure. I don't have specifics beyond that, guys. Certainly I've seen the reporting. I remember that reporting was out there in the playoffs, and there seemed to be this knee-jerk reaction to that. Well, that's not possible if he's doing what he's doing on the ice now. I'm not saying, like, I genuinely don't know what specifically within the knee is the issue or what the two issues were. I just am under the impression it's the same knee. And that's the truth, guys. Sometimes I have to hold things back. That one I don't know. But you can tear an ACL without rupturing an ACL, right? Like, not all tears are complete tears. Not all tears are Ilya Mikheyev needs to be. So there are different degrees there. So those two things, people couldn't seem to wrap their minds around those possibilities coexisting, like him playing as aggressively as he was, getting ready to come back and having a torn ACL. And I do think they can coexist. Not saying they did. I genuinely don't know, but it is possible for those things. You may be talking to somebody right now who tore his ACL in college, never got it fixed, and found out a few weeks ago at the age of 50 that he's looking at a knee replacement. So, it's probably not a good thing to play through it, but you certainly can.
Talk about the
happy 50th.
Yes. Talk about the relationship of Ian Clark and Thatcher Demko. That's going to get analyzed a lot given the announcement of the goaltending coaching staff. I'm not here to say that Ian Clark is to blame for that. I can't make that statement. I don't know. Can you make that statement? And what do you think Thatcher Demko is thinking about that relationship now as he looks back 2020?
Sorry, I missed the statement that, like, linking the two, like, the injuries,
just the workload, the practice habits, all that sort of stuff. What do you think Thatcher Demko is thinking about now as he looks back in history at the way that he was used?
Ian demands a lot of his goaltenders.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why a lot of his goaltenders have the success they do. It's the most important position on the ice in his mind, and so they need to be the hardest workers on the ice. That's always been a non-negotiable with him. There is no relation between their relationship and the change in goalie coaching. This is not Thatcher Demko has nothing to do with Ian not being the goalie coach here right now in terms of, like, their relationship or being strained, or, like, that's not why this happened. That I can say with a fair degree of confidence.
Let me just jump in, Kev. This isn't management saying, "Oh, Clark, it's too much for Demko. We need to give him a different coach who's less demanding." That's not the case here.
It's a tough one. That may be part of their thinking process. They haven't articulated that, right? I I think it would be pretty easy to make him the scapegoat for the injuries. I do think he demands a lot and he pushes them hard and he puts them into those positions, and it's tough. But he did so with Jacob Markstrom, with Sergei Bobrovsky, and with all the success they had. I do not believe that in any way, shape, or form that they are directly linked, however. Like, that is not why Ian Clark is not, like, this is not a Thatcher Demko decision for Ian Clark to not be the goaltending coach of the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think Thatcher would, I think there would be, I gotta be careful because I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think there would be some hesitancy to lose him as his goaltending coach with the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, because you can have an okay working relationship with somebody, but it would kind of be neither here nor there that he's gone. But you think it might be more positive than that he is a little bit wary about what's around the corner?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I don't think he's going, oh, well, okay, thank God Ian's gone. It's funny because I heard similar speculation when Jacob Markstrom left town, right? About, like out from under that relationship, because it is a demanding relationship. Last I checked, Jacob Markstrom named his firstborn son after Ian. Not kidding.
So because that son,
not kidding, guys.
That son will also make Jacob work. So that's fitting.
Yeah,
right. So like, there's a lot of stuff out there about how this went down. I don't believe all of it to be true. We'll see. Like, it's up to Thatcher to come out and say this. So it puts me in a bit of a tough spot. It's up to him to sort of come and say this, and they put him in that position where he can either say nothing or defend his guy. But I do believe that relationship, certainly demanding as any goalie coach in the league, was also very strong. And I believe there is a very strong belief from Thatcher in what Ian does.
Why understand why Ian's no longer the goaltending coach, because the goaltending coach does have to get off the ice and get on the ice, I should say. And we know that Ian has some ailments there that are going to prevent him from being on the ice.
Not exclusively, though. Like, I just think not on a day-to-day basis. Like, I saw this transition coming. I've said elsewhere that I thought it would be next year. But it wasn't, I can never go on the ice. Like, I think there was my understanding, not of this right now, but of what the plan was to be part of a transition. And that would include getting on the ice. I think he wanted to be here, as a director, to sort of see what he's built through for a long time. Like, this is a role we've seen other organizations adopt, so that continuity, so that all the stuff that got you Artur Silovs and got you to the second round and a fair amount of gate revenue from that continues. When he was in Columbus, 7 goalies were drafted, 6 of them played in the NHL. That's a pretty unreal track record. Silovs is the first guy that he drafted here, that he was a part of drafting here, and we see where he's at. I think that Aku, the kid in Harvard, despite being off the radar here in this market, isn't as far behind that progression as some might, realize. And I think there was always a plan to be a part of it. It's like where it specifically went off the rails this year, but I don't think it was, I can never be on the ice again. I just don't think it was the day-to-day, everyday goalie coach thing. And again, I thought this would happen in the future, not this year. So maybe something changed.
Even more to the question then, why would they take director of goaltending title away from the overarching responsibilities?
Can't answer that.
Would that have worked Ian Clark? Do you think he's
can't answer that because don't know, or can't answer that because
because I'm genuinely confused by it.
Yeah.
Because that's the progression I saw. And like I said, I'm not privy to how it all went down. But that was the plan, right? Like hiring Marco, transitioning Marco up, and being a director of goaltending, continuing to oversee this as Mitch Korn is now with the Nashville Predators, as Bill Ranford is with the Los Angeles Kings, as on the same day. Like, the juxtaposition was hard to miss with Benoit Allaire moving into a director role with the New York Rangers on the same day that this came out, hours before. So yeah, like I don't know. I don't know why they would choose a different role, on paper a lesser role, than what he had previously.
It would be your guess that he was disappointed.
Hard to see why you would walk away from that much institutional knowledge. And I guess you could easily look at it like in fairness, you could look at it like, hey, like I talked about the scouting and the drafting and the developing record. Well, that's the role they put him in, right? I just think as soon as you take away director title, I sort of do. Like, there are other teams that raised an eyebrow because now he's fair game.
How quickly could that happen?
I genuinely don't know. I doubt it would be this year. I don't know how those procedures work, but as soon as you're into a scout, I don't know I have no idea what the contracts are, right? Like, but the one thing that would have prevented it in the past was a director title. And now a director title is a promotion, and it's pretty rare. Although I do know a goalie coach that was in the American League that was offered an NHL role in an organization that actually refused to allow him out of it. That has happened in the past, but pretty rare that you wouldn't be allowed to take a especially now that it's a promotion that's significant.
You think your guess that he's disappointed that he didn't get this role, as opposed to getting close to 60 and I just want to cut down on everything, or maybe you could have that cake and eat it too if you're arm's length director, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe, but like I said, I just I've talked to other guys in the league that have been around for a long time that know the track record and have seen the work here since coming back, and are kind of blown away by the way they've decided to go on this.
But is it possible
I'm not using the word disrespectful, but other people have.
Is it possible he doesn't want to work that hard though? He just doesn't want that level of involvement anymore.
No, I don't believe that's the case.
No, okay.
Because that was all. And again, not specific to how this has gone down, not me talking to him, but just because I know I do have an understanding of what I think the long-term plan was, and this wasn't it. So maybe something did change, right? Maybe something did change. And like I said, I got to be careful here because this is the way things have gone here in the past couple of years. Like, talking to us is, not something something that has gotten them out of contract. So everything I'm talking about is sort of past, like what I expected to happen, as opposed to how this all went down.
So, just to be clear, your understanding, because Clark is a holdover from the Benning regime.
Last one, if I'm not mistaken, might be the last contract that wasn't signed by this group.
Your understanding is that everything was working swimmingly well between the new regime and Clark until whatever happened here in the last few weeks.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I how do you characterize swimmingly? You are talking about a very strong person.
You hadn't heard that they were not on the same page prior.
No, and this is listen, like, I know Ian, and I'm biased here. Like, let's be perfectly clear. I am we're supposed to be impartial observers, Matt, and we try really hard. But Ian Clark's the person that got me into goaltending. So your audience needs to know that my bias is clear there. This is the guy that taught me the position, originally hired me to run a now defunct magazine. And I learned so much from him, as have many. Like, there's nobody that's written more about the position. It's why he's so highly regarded. So my bias lies there. But I also know Ian is a very strong personality, very strong personality, very strong belief in self and what he does. And so to say that, like, I don't know that there hasn't been clashes behind the scenes, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any problem with how the operation was proceeding and how the goalies were playing. Let's put it that way.
Number one, great disclosure on your part. Well done, Kevin. Secondly, you have one conversation with Ian Clark and you understand he is a edgy, forceful personality. Of that, there is no doubt. Let's get on to patching the dam.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Let's circle back now to the performance on the ice, because we've just talked for almost 20 minutes about a lot of uncertainty right now with regards to not only the coaching but the playing of the position of goal. Do they have enough concrete in the dam here, or do they need to go find something else here? Is Yuri Patera and Artur Shilovs going to be enough insurance for Thatcher Demko as far as we see it?
Well, okay, so first off, can we just let me start with the goalie coaching.
Okay.
Because I do think, because of that personality, Matt, and because of the track record, you guys know that we could have a whole segment on the absurdity of Francois Allaire not being in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the list of guys, if that were to happen, that would follow him would include his brother Benny, would include Mitch Korn, and when you talk to goalie people around, would include like the Bill Ranfords and the Ian Clarks, right? Like, when Ian used to have that magazine, Francois subscribed to it, right? Like, nobody's developed. So the conversation is largely focused on him. Marco Terranius is an excellent goaltending coach. He was highly coveted in Russia. That's where he worked before coming over here. He never gets to, he's not an American Hockey League goalie coach unless Russia invades Ukraine and he can no longer work there. Russian teams pay their goalie coaches more in many cases than NHL. That's why these guys don't come over for American League jobs. That opened the window to him being here, to learning the ins and outs of Ian Clark's system, while still applying all his own beliefs as a coach. This is a guy that worked with Igor Shesterkin in Russia. He's an excellent coach. So I worry all the focus on Ian also takes a little bit away about how ready for this and how good Marco Terranius is. So listen, would I have loved it if Ian was there, hand in fist, working with all of them together? Yes. But again, some of that might be my personal bias. So I don't want to lose that in terms of patching the dam. Marco Terranius, while not having coached in the NHL, and boy, did Tocchet lose a lot of NHL coaching room experience this summer when you add him to Ian Clark to Mike Yeo, but he's an excellent coach. On the goaltending side, can't answer that question because, like I said, there is genuine uncertainty. I'm pretty confident about training camp and the start of the season, but beyond that, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty. And as I said, nobody works like Thatcher works. And once he has confidence in that knee, he'll be back as quick as possible. Means he's missed his regular offseason. Normally he's been on the ice for I just looked at the calendar. I can't believe it's almost September. He's normally been on the ice by now for a month with Ian Clark here in Vancouver, behind the scenes and privately. That hasn't happened. No training camp, no preseason games. Like it's going to be, he's going to be trying to catch up to a moving train a little bit here. So whether that's a month in or more, man, 17 NHL games of experience, as much as I love Yuri Patera, when they got him, it was also with an understanding that there were things that, much like a lot of their guys, they get him in the American League, they see potential, but there are also things they want to work on. And usually it starts in the A. To throw them right into the NHL, that's not a finished product for them. So options are out there. Rick's reporting on Kevin Lankinen, who, by the way, coincidentally, it's too bad. I don't think the money works here. I just because I think that's the only reason he's not signed is he made $2 million last year and was probably looking to make at least that this year. Otherwise, he should have been one of the first guys signed this summer. He's ready to pop. The same numbers that led me to say Charlie Lindgren would be the best contract signed 3 summers ago, and now he is, or 2 summers ago, and now he is. The same numbers that led me to say that Connor Ingram is someone teams should claim off waivers from Nashville because he's ready to pop. Lankin has the same underlying numbers. He's ready for a bigger role, and he's ready to pop in the NHL. Doesn't mean he's going to be a Vezina winner or a star, but he is an NHL goalie with a lot of upside that's yet untapped. The problem is that there's an expectation that comes with a certain salary. So we'll see what happens there. Just kind of lucky that he's one of the options. And by the way, he's worked with Marco Terranius, trained with him in the off seasons back in Finland, where Marco works with a bunch of NHL guys. Beyond that, though, it gets pretty thin in a hurry. People have suggested Martin Jones. I've been told he's retiring. Where you can get a guy, I think PTO and the Rick reporting that they were looking at a PTO candidate tells me that my timeline isn't off. We don't have somebody for camp, but we expect them to be back early in the season because the PTO lets you get out from under it, whereas a contract's on the books takes one of your 50 away and you got to find a space for him. Even if that space is in the American League because the contract's small, now you're pushing Tolopilo down and they want him to play, right? And that's the thing about Patera. He doesn't demand minutes in the A. Tolopilo still would have played and developed. Add a body and that gets tougher to do. So what are you left with? I think you're left with waivers. And if you get to the point where you're near the start of the season and Thatcher is at a point where it's going to be longer than maybe you think or hope right now. And the word Patrick Alvin gave me 10 days ago for an NHL.com piece is we're hopeful he'll be ready for the start of the season. So maybe they still hold out that hope. But there are a lot of teams with NHL guys that are headed to the American League unless they see this need and hold on to 3 through the start of the season. I look at, Buffalo, Pekka Luukkonen, and Devin Levi are going to be in the NHL. And that means James Reimer, although they're a team that used 3 last year and kept 3 in the NHL. But I think James Reimer's on waivers. That's $1 million contract, again, because you can move it to the minors at any time. I look at, Winnipeg signed Eric Comrie and Kaapo Kähkönen, and one of those guys is going to the minors. What's Detroit got? 4 guys. I can't figure out what they're doing, to be honest with you. So there are going to be guys who can play NHL minutes and give you good NHL minutes. And let's not forget, this is no longer a Vancouver Canucks team that needs their goaltenders to stop bullets in their teeth. They've actually learned how to play defense under Tocchet, and they defend really well. So you can get through with good NHL goaltending. The only thing they're missing right now is a lack of experience, and you can find that, I believe, on the waiver wire closer to the start of the season.
Archer Shilovs actually gets on the ice this week. And in a competitive situation, he's trying to get Latvia to the Milan Olympics in 2026. Good thing for him and the Canucks that he's getting some early competition here in August prior to all this and perhaps having to start the opener for an injured Thatcher Demko.
Hey, it's never a bad thing to get game reps. It's a different style of game over there than what he'll face here, but it's never a bad thing. Normally I would say bad thing that he's not on the ice here working with their goaltending coaches, but that's all changed too. Although Marco's here and working with the guys on a daily basis, so he would have benefited from being here too. I mean, the only downside to that, Matt, is injury risk. And it's already happened to one organization that's looking for a replacement goalie based on one of the earlier tournaments. I don't think it's been disclosed, so I'm not going to name it, but there's already been a team that lost a guy that they had in their plans, in their depth chart at least, from one of the earlier pre-Olympic tournaments that I think was at the start of August. So it happens, right? Like, knock on wood, because this is a big year for Arturs. But that's the only possible downside. I mean, you're playing against elite players. You're getting the feel for games. It's like getting a couple preseason games in advance. And we've talked before about how limited, although I guess with no Demko, there's more opportunity in the preseason than there would normally be. But usually the starter takes a couple of them, right? And pretty quickly, there's not much left once you get into the games that matter. And you don't want those guys in the early games where, especially when you're on the road and you've got a nothing lineup and you're getting pumped like that. You're not actually building game habits when the game looks nothing like it will when the season starts.
Fair. Can I just ask you, can we add one more team to that list? Is Vegas with Hill, Samsonov, and Schmid likely waving an NHL goalie down to the A?
Yeah, but it's probably going to be Akira Schmid. Does he need to clear waivers? I'm assuming that was part of the Devils moving on, and he basically gives you what you have right now, and that's not a ton of NHL experience. And he's not a pure project because he's had success, but a bit more of a project. I like Akira Schmid. I think there's upside there. I just think the Devils put both him and Nico Dawes in a situation where they were asked to do too much too soon.
Outstanding stuff as always, Mr. Woodley. We will see you at Northlands tomorrow with your soon-to-be reconstructed knee, your new tattoo, and your 50-year-old passport. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my swing still looks the same, unfortunately, guys. So avert your eyes when we get out there tomorrow.
Look forward to it. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.